You're listening to Supervision with a Vision, where we discuss all things supervision. I'm your host, Sarah, professional counselor, marriage and family therapist, play therapist, eating disorder specialist, and cookie lover, with my co-host, Heather, marriage and family therapist, certified Together in Texas counselor, a Texas transplant from California, and outdoor adventurer. Hi, welcome to Supervision with a Vision. Today, Heather and I are talking about The Illusion of Control, published in Psychology Today 2023. Heather, today we're talking about the illusion of control within counseling and supervision. And the first point in the article is that one of the pitfalls of this illusion of control is having a plan that is too specific.
Right. And I think this applies so well to both supervision and counseling. If you are too rigid in your plan, or you have an idea of like, this is session number 4, so we should be doing this, this, and this. Mm-hmm. Well, one, your client or your supervisee may or may not even feel comfortable enough to bring what's really on the table if you're taking over and controlling the whole piece of it.
There's not room for them to do maybe something else that might be needed.
Right. But then also, I think what happens when the plan doesn't like hit what they need, if that happens. So if you have a supervisee that needs to talk about making a CPS report, that's pretty urgent. That's like a top of the pile that you need to talk about. And if your plan is that today we're going to talk about ethics, so you're going to cross paths and you're not going to get done what needs to be done.
Well, I like the example you gave that, week 4, this is what's accomplished. There are some models of counseling that absolutely do that.
Right.
So what are some examples, or what are times where you've tried to strike a balance and not be too specific in your plan?
I think that I probably go too far the other way, where I'm a little bit too, I don't have necessarily a plan that could be, I have to remind myself to stay on target with making sure, talking to supervisees about updates on the board, I always have to make myself a note of, here's the 3 things I need to bring to supervision this week, regardless of what they're talking about. Mm-hmm. And I think that applies to clients too. Week to week, they're coming in and talking about the things that have happened in their world, but it is our job to kind of keep that in, I guess, the same vein of going towards their goal, right? Mm-hmm. And if something shifts, then we need to shift what our goals are.
Mm-hmm. I think, I'm thinking more often that might happen to me in a counseling session versus supervision, where I may be using, one of the examples would be child-parent relationship therapy.
Right.
And it is a 12-week model. I can't remember.
I think it's 12 weeks, but it's 10 of that set.
Right? And it does, it has specific topics to cover. It has specific handouts to give, things like that, that might be tricky sometimes, striking the right balance between making sure that you follow those steps as well as making room for things that you can't plan for.
Right.
In supervision, I think, maybe I lean more in the direction that you do, that sometimes I have some structure and sometimes not. I don't know which one. I was going to say I don't know which one's better, but I think it has to do with your supervisee or your client.
Right.
In supervision, something that I'll do that provides some structure is that 1 week out of every month I have group supervision, and all of my supervisees know that in group supervision they need to bring a resource to share and a client to talk about. And we've gotten into a routine where we always start with the resources.
Right.
And it can be anything. It could be a book or a website or a training or a counseling activity, lots of different things. But they know to expect that. And I think it keeps us on track a little bit, but also allows for some amount of time within that same hour where we can talk about other things as they come up.
Kind of like a scaffolding, like this is our outline. We know this is going to happen during group. And then their individual supervision time is a little bit more concrete to what they need.
Have you ever had a session that was, looking back, you went, yep, that was way too specific or structured or rigid? for the situation?
I think when I've worked in different clinics, they have a curriculum they want you to use or a different, a different model that they approach everything with. And so I think I can see sometimes when I'm kind of, okay, this is week 6 and it says we're supposed to be talking about where we feel emotions in our body. I mean, I am pretty good at like trying to like tweak it a little bit so we get to that point at some time. But I mean, it really depends on what you're presented with.
I can think a handful of times I've been training a new therapist at a specific job, not being the supervisor, but I may be the new coworker, and I'm orienting them to where we work. I can remember one time I'm helping a new hire at a hospital setting, and we ran a lot of groups.
Okay.
And I think that specific day, the plan was that we would run a teen group and a latency group. So kids, probably 12 or younger. And well, I say younger, maybe like 7 to 12, something like that. And so we talked through where to lead the group, what the population was, what were the supplies or materials that were available, what were some examples of things that the group had done before. So in a hospital setting, it's an open group, meaning the people within the group members change pretty frequently.
Right.
And I remember we went through all of that. We led the groups. She co-led with me. And I think we took a break for lunch. And I come back and she is creating a group activity. And she has counted how many 7 to 12-year-olds there are. And she's creating this very specific, like she's making materials for these kids and these ages. That's
almost like specific. A craft, right? Like cutting out the pieces.
But it was not just in general. I mean, I'm saying if there were 4 kids in that age group at that day, she was planning for those specific 4 kids for the following day. And I stopped her and said, it looks like you're creating an activity for those kids maybe for tomorrow. And I want to stop you because we don't know what's going to happen.
Right. You don't know who tomorrow.
I mean, some of them might be here, but some of them might not. And you might also have new kids. And she just looked at me blank and continued to do what she was doing. And the next day, not one single one of the 4 that she was planning for was there. And in fact, we had a little handful of new kids, and they were all teenagers.
So yeah.
So her activity was absolutely not useful that day, because I did also say, hang on to it.
Right. You might need it again.
You can use it again. But she went through a lot of time and effort to create that, and it just didn't work. I can also think about times where in eating disorder treatment, maybe there's a plan that we're going to use something specific related to food, and something else happens and you just can't.
Right. Like it just didn't work. You couldn't get the supply you needed, or.
Well, like, I don't know, maybe they had a really difficult week or a really important family session, and, trying a new food that day is just not, it's just not on the table. Right. It just wouldn't work for the situation.
That's a great example.
So sometimes it just doesn't happen.
Right.
The next point in our article is wanting to control other people. So when are some times in supervision or counseling that you or I or somebody might feel the pull to control, but it's not really helping the counseling situation.
I think that it probably, at least in my experience, probably happens a little bit more in supervision necessarily than it does in counseling, although it kind of goes both ways. But I think in supervision, because a lot of times if our supervisee is doing something that's not okay, that is our license. And so that is always in the back of my head. So sometimes I can think that I might get a little bit too like, wait, it had to go this way. And I can pull back from that a little bit and go, okay, like no rules were broken here. We can still do it differently. But I think that's, for me, something that I just think of all the time is like what my supervisees are doing, where they're working, who their clientele is, because something does go wrong, it's back on us.
Yeah.
So I think that dynamic is a little different than in a counseling dynamic. I feel like it's not as.
I mean, I feel like we have maybe that knee-jerk reaction or instinct, but do you do something different?
No.
Do you
Right. I don't
behave
personally.
differently? I mean, I think that I sometimes argue with myself over this.
Right.
That, maybe in a supervision example, maybe somebody's telling me about this session that they had, and as they're telling me, I'm in my head, I'm going, ding, wrong, ding,
Ding,
wrong,
right.
ding, don't do that, ding, that's a problem, ding.
Right.
And there's so many
Right.
that it feels like if we stopped and discussed or examined each one of those dings, it would be overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
It would be frustrating for them. But I also feel like, but I don't want to just let that moment go by and not have addressed. Right. That's kind of unusual, or that's whatever the issue was.
Right. And not being able to give feedback in the moment is tricky. So you have to kind of weigh, like, this is important. I want to tell you it because it does have longer term effects.
So I think I said I argue with myself over this, that I can catch myself feeling like, not that it's a conscious thought, I want to control people, but I can catch myself feeling like I need to be helpful,
right,
or I need to in order to teach, and I don't think that it's productive.
Right. You can just get in your own way.
Yeah. Well, I feel like the person on the other end, either the supervisee or the client, feels like they didn't get to express themselves,
right,
or they didn't explain the full idea or how they felt in the moment, because it was overshadowed by me wanting to make sure that they know how to report that abuse or something like that.
I can see where that could come.
If you were feeling that, like, I'm wondering what you would do if you noticed you or maybe one of your supervisees was doing that, how you might keep that in check, or how you might help them to see the value of less control.
Just as you were saying that, I'm just remembering a supervision I had not that long ago where my supervisee was very, very just needing it for her session to go a certain way. And it was she works with children, but then also works with families, and she was going to plan she was trying to. And I had reminded her the last 2 times that she had planned her family sessions to go a certain way, it kind of blew up in her face, and she was unprepared for what could come. And so I think as you were talking, I was like, oh yes, I have seen that, because sometimes our perfectionism gets in the way and want it to be right, or to make sure we tell the parents X, Y, and Z, and it doesn't always play out the way that we think it needs to play out.
So the last point in the article is emphasizing embrace spontaneity. And I think this is hard for me sometimes, but it is one of the things that I really like about counseling.
I was going to say, I think it is something that maybe I've always liked kind of just in life, but I think also it's a really good skill to have as a counselor. To be able to look back and go, oh, that whole session just did not go anyhow I thought it was going to go. Nothing happened that I thought was going to happen, but, this came out of it. Or,
I mean, we talked about over planning for a group, but one of the ways that I embrace spontaneity is that if I am leading a group, I actually really like to lead groups and have activities that I bring to groups. I will bring certainly 2, maybe even 3 activities to a group that I could throw out and plan easily. So maybe I use one, even maybe an activity that I've used before that I really love and has worked really well with groups. And I start out using it and explain the activity to the group, and it just falls flat.
Right. And everyone's like, no.
Right. No. They just don't get it, or they finish it in a few minutes, or it's not engaging to them for whatever reason. And I mean, imagine if I wasn't able to be spontaneous and I just went, well,
that's it for today.
That was the whole group in 5 minutes.
See you later. Bye.
And so instead, I've got a handful of other options that I can play with. But even when I plan an activity, I build in ways to be spontaneous. So if I'm asking people to draw something, then I don't have in mind what that's going to look like. Right. It could be however they choose to draw it, with whatever they choose to draw it. If I mean, you could share the picture with me, or not share the picture with me, or so there's a lot of flexibility even in the way that I might introduce an activity. But yeah, I mean, I also think I said this to a supervisee just recently, that they were surprised at how something went, or they were caught off guard by something a client said, and I mean, I think it shows a client your genuineness and your humanity, that we don't always know what's going to happen.
Right.
Or we don't know what someone might say. So they might say something and you might say, I did not expect you to say that.
Right. That was not what I was thinking. Or that,
or you surprised me.
Right.
Or, wow, this is a whole new way to play this game. I've never done it like this before. I love that idea, actually. But when I play games with kids, I've started asking them what the rules are before we start.
Especially with some of the ones we use often.
Right. Because I think I know the rules, but if you play by a totally different set of rules, I don't know, you tell me.
Right.
I can play that
different way. Right.
Like Uno. Everybody's got different rules. I mean, everyone plays a different way. So you tell me, we'll play that way.
I actually even ask clients that I know that I've played Uno with a lot, that I'm like, okay, now remind me, are we stacking twos? What are we doing?
Right. So yeah, I love the spontaneity that being a counselor provides. Can you think of times where something just happened in a session that you thought, well, I did not see that coming?
Yeah, actually, when I was, just barely licensed, by like a month into being fully licensed. And I had a couple that I'd been seeing for quite a long time, come in, and we were talking about like the week and how things have gone. And all of a sudden, like the wife was discussing what things she'd done, and she'd traveled for work and all these other things. And then in the course of her discussing that, she tells the husband for the first time in front of me that she's been having an affair. And it was like, out of the blue, that was never anything that was on the table. That was not what we were working through in counseling. And it was like, oh, okay. Like, don't even look up. Just keep staring out the window. Don't, but it was like a very much, I think I learned in that moment that not only like, okay, you never know what you're going to get, but like the ability to be able to shift. Like, obviously that had to be addressed. And that is not something that they hadn't even discussed in their goals for counseling. So I think that's one of those. You can always be surprised. But
yeah. I thinking back, I don't even know what the most shocking thing that's ever happened in a session was, but plenty of surprising things. One time a family tried to give me a kitten. In a session.
We bought this for you.
Yeah, I didn't know the kitten was with them. Right. And then, hey, we thought of you. Do you want this? No, I don't want a kitten.
So sorry. So sweet, but.
Or one time, and it wasn't a scary way at all, but one time a kid brought ninja stars that he really wanted to show.
Okay.
Didn't see that coming.
Right.
They were sharp.
You were like, these are real ninja stars. Yeah. They're not pretend.
Yeah. Or just like you said, just sometimes some of the things that people say,
right,
you're just surprised at, or you weren't ready for.
Right. And I will say, even though that session was my first session of like, I totally caught off guard, completely was not expecting that, I also can look back at it and go, man, it was such a good session. Like, from that side to go, okay, so she felt like safe enough to say it. He was thankful I was there, because he said that he was able to like stop and pause and like think about what he said first. I mean, it was just all sorts of things that really were positive, right, but definitely not planned.
Right. Well, and I mean, the greatest moments in counseling, I don't think you look back and think, I planned that just
it
right.
Was so perfect.
Right. Or if you realize it was spontaneous and it was a moment that you didn't expect, or that you couldn't have planned for, or you could not have orchestrated it
to go
exactly the way that it did.
Right. Very good.
Yeah. Well, thanks today for listening to Supervision with a Vision. Heather and I would love to hear about times when you have embraced spontaneity in your practice.